There are trips you forget within a year, and there are trips that never fully leave you. The kind where something happened that you cannot explain away no matter how many times you try. This is the second kind. I have tried to explain it away for 3 years now. I have not succeeded. My name is Brandon. I was 32 at the time. My wife Claire and I had been married 3 years. We decided to do a quiet anniversary trip, just the two of us, to the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, November of 2021. We had heard that late fall was the best time to go, after the leaves had peaked and the tourists had thinned out. We wanted isolation. We wanted quiet. We found a small cabin rental about 6 miles outside of Gatlinburg, up a narrow mountain road that the listing described as rustic but accessible. 1 bedroom, a wood-burning fireplace, a porch facing the mountain, no neighbors visible from the property. We arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. The drive up the mountain road took longer than expected. Unpaved for the last 2 miles, steep in places, heavily wooded on both sides. When the cabin finally came into view through the trees, Claire said it looked exactly like the photos, and I agreed. Small, dark wood exterior, a single porch light burning even though we had not turned it on. I figured it was on a timer. We got inside, turned the heat up, unpacked our bags. The cabin was clean and well kept. The owner had left firewood stacked by the door, and a short handwritten note on the kitchen table with the Wi-Fi password and a reminder that the nearest grocery store was back in Gatlinburg. We settled in, cooked dinner, got the fire going, and spent the evening exactly the way we had planned. Quiet, easy, no agenda. We went to bed around 11. I woke up at 1 a.m. to the sound of a car. Not driving past, stopping. I heard tires on gravel, and then an engine cutting off. I lay still and listened. A car door opened and closed. Then footsteps on the porch steps, slow and heavy. Then a knock on the front door. 3 knocks, firm and deliberate. Claire woke up beside me. I told her to stay in the bedroom. I pulled on my jeans and walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. A man was standing on the porch, heavyset, maybe 50 years old, wearing a canvas jacket and a cap. He was looking directly at the peephole the way people do when they know someone is looking back. His expression was flat, not distressed, not apologetic, just waiting. I asked through the door who he was and what he wanted. He said his name was Dale. He said this was his cousin's property and he needed to get something from inside. I told him we had rented the cabin for the week and asked if he could contact the owner. He said he had already tried the owner and could not reach him. He said what he needed to get would only take a minute and he would not bother us after that. I did not open the door. I told him I was sorry, but I was not comfortable letting anyone inside at 1 a.m. and suggested he try the owner again in the morning. He stood there for a moment without saying anything. Then he nodded once, turned around, walked back down the porch steps, and got in his truck. I watched through the front window as his headlights came on. He did not leave immediately. He sat in the driveway with the engine running for almost 4 minutes. I timed it. Then he backed out slowly onto the mountain road and drove down through the trees, and the sound of his engine faded out. Claire was standing in the bedroom doorway. I told her what had happened. We agreed to call the owner in the morning and let him know. I checked that both door locks were latched, and we went back to bed. I did not sleep well for the rest of that night. In the morning, I called the owner, a man named Terry who picked up right away. I described the man and told him what had been said at the door. Terry went quiet for a moment and then told me he did not have a cousin named Dale. He said he did not have any family in that area at all. He was from Nashville. He had purchased the property as an investment 3 years prior and managed it remotely. He said no one had any legitimate reason to be at that cabin. He asked me to describe the truck. I told him it was a dark-colored pickup, older model, no visible plates from where I had been standing. Terry said he was going to call the county sheriff and asked me to do the same if the man came back. He did not come back that day. Thursday was normal. We hiked in the morning, drove into Gatlinburg for lunch, came back in the afternoon, and spent the evening by the fire. I did not tell Claire how uneasy I still felt. She had moved past it faster than I had, and I didn't want to pull her back. We went to bed around 10. At 2:40 a.m. I woke up again. Not to a sound this time. I woke up the way you sometimes do when something is wrong, but you cannot immediately identify what it is. I lay there and looked at the ceiling and tried to understand what had pulled me out of sleep. Then I noticed the light under the bedroom door was different. We had left the kitchen light on as a precaution. The light under the door had been a steady yellow strip when we went to bed. Now it was moving, shifting slightly, the way light moves when something is passing in front of it. Something was moving in the kitchen. I reached over and put my hand on Claire's arm. She woke up immediately, and I put my finger to my lips. I pointed at the light under the door. She saw it. She grabbed my arm with both hands. I picked up my phone and called 911 without opening the door. I spoke as quietly as I could and gave them the address. The dispatcher told me to stay in the room and keep the door closed and that deputies were on the way. We sat on the floor with our backs against the bed and faced the door and did not make a sound. The light under the door shifted twice more and then went still. Deputies arrived in 14 minutes. When they entered the cabin, they found the front door unlocked. We had both checked it before bed. The lock had not been forced. There was no damage to the door or the frame. In the kitchen, they found a cabinet under the sink standing open that had been closed when we went to bed. Inside the cabinet, behind the cleaning supplies, was a small metal box. Inside the box was a set of keys, a folded piece of paper with a series of numbers written on it that the deputies said appeared to be a combination, and a photograph. The photograph was of the interior of the cabin, the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom doorway. It had been taken from inside the cabin. Based on the quality and lighting, it appeared to have been taken during the day when natural light was coming through the windows. The cabin had been occupied by guests for most of the previous 6 months. Deputies searched the property and found no one. They took the box and its contents as evidence. They filed a report and told us the investigation would be handed to the county sheriff. One of the deputies told us quietly that the unlocked front door concerned him more than anything else, given that we had secured it before bed. He said it suggested whoever had been there had a key. We checked out the next morning, a full 2 days early. Terry refunded those 2 nights without any discussion. He sounded shaken on the phone. He told me he was going to have the property rekeyed immediately and install exterior cameras. What I have not been able to let go of is the cabinet. The fact that Dale had stood on our porch at 1 a.m. and told me he needed to get something from inside the cabin. The fact that what was hidden inside that cabin was small enough to fit in one hand and had clearly been there for a long time. Whatever those keys opened, whatever those numbers corresponded to, he had wanted it badly enough to come back a second time and let himself in while we slept on the other side of a door. The sheriff's office never publicly identified a suspect. Terry sold the property 8 months later. I do not know what became of the investigation. Claire still does not like sleeping in unfamiliar places. She checks the locks twice every night at home before she gets into bed. I understand it. I do the same thing. I just do not tell her that. I want to start with something small, because that is how it started for us. A smell. Just a smell coming from under a hotel room door. That is all it was at first. By the time we understood what that smell meant, we had already been sleeping 12 feet away from it for 2 nights. My name is Ryan. I was 31 at the time. My girlfriend, Cassie, and I had been together 4 years. We decided to take a long weekend trip to Savannah, Georgia, in October of 2021. We had both wanted to go for years. The architecture, the food, the history. We booked a room at an older boutique hotel in the historic district. 3 stars, decent reviews, good location. The kind of place with crown molding and creaky floors and a narrow elevator that felt like it had not been serviced since the building was first built. We checked in on a Thursday evening. The woman at the front desk was friendly. She handed us our key cards and told us breakfast ran from 7 to 10. Our room was on the 3rd floor, room 318, end of the hallway, last door on the left. We dropped our bags, cleaned up, and went out to see the city. Dinner on River Street, drinks at a rooftop bar. We got back around midnight, fell asleep quickly, and slept without any issue. The next morning is when I first noticed it. We were heading out for breakfast, walking down the hallway toward the elevator. As we passed the room directly across from ours, room 317, I caught a smell, faint, unpleasant in a way I could not immediately name. Not garbage, not mold, something heavier, something with a strange sweetness underneath it that made it worse, not better. I paused for half a second and kept walking. Cassie did not mention it. I did not say anything either. I figured it was a maintenance issue, a backed up drain maybe. Old hotels have old pipes. We went to breakfast and I forgot about it within the hour. That evening, we came back around 9, good tired, the kind that comes from walking a city all day. As we stepped off the elevator and turned down the hallway, the smell hit us both at the same time. Stronger now, much stronger. Cassie grabbed my arm and looked at me. "What is that?" she said. It was coming from 317. Clearly, unmistakably from 317. The smell was pushing out from under the door in a way that made the air in the hallway feel thick and wrong. I stood there for a moment and then went down to the front desk. The young man working the evening shift listened to me and nodded. He said he would have someone check it out. He had the calm of someone trained to handle guest complaints without making them feel dramatic. He thanked me for letting them know. I went back upstairs. We kept the window in our room open that night. The smell did not reach our room directly, but knowing it was there, 12 feet across the hallway, made everything feel off. Cassie looked something up on her phone, then put it face down without telling me what she found. I did not ask. We told ourselves the hotel was handling it. Saturday morning, the smell was gone. The hallway was normal. As we passed room 317 on the way to breakfast, I noticed a small placard hanging from the door handle. Out of service. We both saw it. Neither of us said anything until we were in the elevator. Probably just a plumbing issue, Cassie said. Yeah, I said. We ate breakfast and did not bring it up again. That afternoon, a thunderstorm rolled in off the coast and shut down the outdoor market we had been walking through. We came back to the hotel earlier than expected, maybe around 4. We changed clothes and I walked down to the vending machine at the end of the hallway. As I passed room 317 on the way back, I noticed the out-of-service placard was gone. The door was slightly open. Not open all the way, just not fully latched. The way a door looks when someone has just walked through it and it has not caught yet. There was no cleaning cart in the hallway. No hotel staff anywhere that I could see. I stopped and looked at that door. From inside the room, I heard a voice, low. A man's voice, speaking slowly. Not to anyone I could hear responding. Just a one-sided, slow, low voice. The words were muffled, and I could not make out what he was saying. I stood in that hallway for maybe 4 seconds, and then I walked back to our room and locked the deadbolt behind me. I want to tell you I called the front desk immediately. I did not. I told Cassie what I heard, and we sat on the bed and talked ourselves out of it for the better part of 20 minutes. A TV, a maintenance worker on a phone call, a new guest who had just checked in. Every explanation was possible. We picked the most comfortable one, made dinner reservations, and got on with our evening. But I checked the door of 317 as we left for dinner. It was closed, latched. The out-of-service placard was back on the handle. We checked out Sunday morning. I will be honest with you. I was relieved to leave. Not in the normal way you feel at the end of a trip. Something different. The quiet release of putting distance between yourself and something you cannot name. 2 weeks after we got home, Cassie sent me a link with no message attached. It was 7 in the morning. A local Savannah news article, dated 4 days after our checkout. Short piece, the kind that does not get much coverage. The article said that Savannah police had responded to a welfare check at a hotel in the historic district. The address matched our hotel exactly. In room 317, they found the body of a man who had been dead for an estimated 4 to 5 days. The cause of death was listed as undetermined pending investigation. The man had been a long-term guest. No foul play was initially suspected. 4 to 5 days. We had checked in on a Thursday evening. I did the math and I sat with it for a long time. If that timeline was accurate, the man in room 317 was already dead when we arrived. He was there the entire first night we slept in that room. He was there Friday morning when I caught that smell in the hallway and told myself it was a plumbing problem. He was there Friday evening when the smell had grown strong enough to stop us both in our tracks. And the voice I heard Saturday afternoon, that low, slow, one-sided voice coming through the gap in the door. Saturday would have been day 4 or day 5, depending on exactly when he died. I have read the explanations. What happens to a body in an enclosed space? Gases, pressure changes, sounds that can be produced without any living thing making them. I have read all of it. I have sat with all of it. I have not been able to fully make myself believe any of it. Cassie and I still talk about that trip sometimes. Never directly. One of us will say Savannah, and the other will go quiet for a moment, and then we will move on to something else. We have not booked another hotel since then. We rent houses now, private. No shared hallways, no doors 12 feet across from ours. It probably does not matter. I know that. Whatever was in room 317 is not following us around. But I still think about that placard on the door. Out of service. The way it was there and then gone and then back again. Someone at that hotel knew something was wrong in that room before we ever smelled it, and they put us in the room directly across the hall anyway. I think about that more than I think about the voice. I want to make that clear before I tell you what happened in Destin, Florida 2 summers ago. I am a 38-year-old man who has worked construction for 15 years. I have been in situations that would rattle most people. I do not spook. I do not panic. I have not been able to sleep without a light on since August of 2023. My buddy Kevin and I drove down from Birmingham, Alabama for a long weekend. Just 2 guys, no agenda, a cheap hotel room 2 blocks from the beach, some fishing gear in the trunk. We had done that same trip 3 years in a row. Same stretch of beach, same bait shop, same routine. Comfortable and familiar. That familiarity is part of what made everything so wrong when it started happening. We checked in on a Friday afternoon. Ground floor room. 2 queen beds, sliding glass door opening to a small concrete patio facing the parking lot. Not glamorous, but we were not there for the room. We dropped our bags and went straight to the beach. Friday was perfect. Fished off the pier until dark, got dinner at a place on the harbor. Came back to the hotel around 10, and were both asleep by 11. I woke up at 2 a.m. No sound, no specific reason. Just awake, staring at the ceiling with that particular alertness that tells you something pulled you out of sleep, even if you cannot identify what. The room was dark. Kevin was breathing steadily in the other bed. The air conditioning unit was running. Everything was normal. Then I noticed the shadow on the curtain. The sliding glass door faced the parking lot where there were overhead lights running all night. Those lights came through the gap in the curtains and threw a pale strip of light across the floor. I had noticed it when we first checked in. It was the same now, except for one thing. There was a shadow in the light strip. Thin, still. The shadow of 2 feet standing directly outside the glass door. Someone was standing on our patio, not moving, just standing there in the dark outside our room at 2 in the morning. I lay completely still. I did not move a single muscle. I watched that shadow and the shadow did not move either. A full minute passed, maybe longer. The feet just stood there, pointed at our door, patient in a way that felt deliberate. The way something stands when it is not in a hurry, because it has already decided what it is going to do. I reached slowly to the nightstand and grabbed my phone. I woke Kevin by pressing it against his arm. He jerked slightly, and I pressed harder, and he went still. Awake now. I held the phone up so he could see the shadow on the floor. I watched him register what he was seeing. He sat up very slowly without making a sound. We looked at each other in the dark. The shadow moved, not away. It shifted. The feet repositioned slightly, turning, the way a person turns when they are leaning closer to look at something. Looking at the gap in the curtains, looking in. Kevin was off his bed before I could say anything. He hit the lights and crossed the room in about 2 steps and yanked the curtain open. The patio was empty. Concrete pad, 2 plastic chairs, the parking lot beyond the low fence. Nobody there. Kevin unlocked the sliding door and stepped out. He looked both directions along the building. He looked at the fence. Nothing. The parking lot had maybe a dozen cars in it, sitting under the lights, completely still. He came back inside, and we stood there looking at each other. Neither of us slept again that night. In the morning, we told ourselves what we needed to tell ourselves to get through the day. Drunk guest, lost tourist, someone looking for a different room. We went fishing. We got lunch. We did not bring it up again until that night, when we were deciding whether to keep the curtain fully closed or leave the gap. We kept it fully closed. Saturday night, I woke up at 2:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I looked at my phone immediately this time. The room was dark. Curtain fully closed. Kevin asleep. I heard it, breathing, right outside the glass door, slow and steady and close. Not walking past, not a conversation, just breathing. One person, standing at our door in the dark, breathing slowly enough that I could hear the rhythm of it through the glass. I did not move. I did not wake Kevin. I lay in that bed and listened to something breathe on the other side of a single pane of glass for what I counted as 40 seconds. Then it stopped. Footsteps on the concrete, unhurried, moving away along the building and then gone. I called the front desk immediately. The night clerk said he would send someone to check the exterior. He called back 10 minutes later and said there was no one on the property who should not be there. He sounded bored. I asked him if the hotel had exterior cameras. He said yes along the building, but that he was not authorized to review them. He said I could speak to the manager in the morning. In the morning, the manager reviewed the footage from the camera mounted at the end of our wing of the building. She came to our room to tell us what she found. She was professional about it, but I could tell she was unsettled. The camera had captured a figure on Friday night, standing at our patio door for 9 minutes. 9 minutes. I had woken up somewhere in the middle of that 9 minutes and watched the shadow for maybe 90 seconds before Kevin turned the lights on. The figure had moved away from our door approximately 3 seconds before Kevin pulled the curtain open. 3 seconds. Saturday night, the camera had captured the same figure returning at 2:15 a.m. and standing at our door for 4 minutes before leaving. The figure was wearing dark clothing and a hood. The camera angle and the lighting were not good enough to capture a face clearly. The manager called the Destin police immediately while we sat in her office. Officers reviewed the footage and filed a report. They said the figure appeared to be male based on build. They canvassed the surrounding area and found nothing. They took a copy of the footage and told us they would investigate. We checked out that same morning, 2 days early. The hotel refunded us without any argument. The police followed up once, 2 weeks later, and then we never heard from them again, to tell us they had not identified a suspect. That was the last contact we had. What I keep coming back to is the 9 minutes. Not the breathing, not the shadow, not any of the individual moments that scared me in that room. The 9 minutes. The idea that something stood outside that glass door for 9 full minutes in the middle of the night, watching 2 men sleep. Patient, still, unhurried. It had done this before. I am certain of that. The patience it showed, the timing, the way it moved away exactly 3 seconds before Kevin pulled that curtain. That is not the behavior of someone doing something like that for the first time. Kevin and I have not done that trip again. We probably never will. I still think about the breathing, how steady it was, how slow, like whatever was outside that door was completely calm.